Good morning, good evening, friends. Welcome to my channel, Kitab Sekh Moti. Today I'm going to talk about uh, a book on Sanskrit grammar. And this is a unique book actually. Actually, it's a set of 6 books at the moment. Work is in progress on the 7th volume. So this set contains 6 volumes. I'm going to discuss the first volume, and I'm just going to discuss a very general idea that I found in the introduction or the preface of the book written by Dr. Paushpi Dikshit, the author of this book. So Dr. Paushpi Dikshit is a Sanskrit scholar, and she is the founder, she's the founder of this institution, Paniniya Sansthan in Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh. So if I translate it, it will be Paninian Research Institute. So it's it's located in Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh, and she runs this institution. So anyone who is interested in learning the Sanskrit grammar from her directly can contact her. Can just Google Paniniya Sansthan and find out more about this institution. She also has a She also has a YouTube channel. And you can subscribe to the channel as well. And as I said, I'll just take a general idea from this. I'll just talk about in what way this book is unique. Because Dr. Paushpi Dikshit claims that for several centuries, Sanskrit has been taught in a way that has made it kind of a long-term process, or I should say, that has made the study of Sanskrit grammar time-consuming. The traditional method that is being followed in most of the places in the world, in universities, in the different traditional schools of grammar that we have in India as well. So she believes that a new system is needed where we can reduce the time that we need in order to learn Sanskrit, and also she wants to base it on the firm foundation of Panini himself. So I think from what I've gathered, I read this introduction a long time ago, but I've seen her YouTube videos. So what she says is, basically there have been 2 approaches to the learning of Sanskrit grammar. One is through the Ashtadhyayi itself. For example, you have the works of Brahmadatta Jigyasu and Yudhishthira Mimamsak. I used to have their books earlier. So this is one method where you just go one by one. Like Panini's Ashtadhyayi has almost 4,000 sutras or formulas. So you just go one by one. You take the first formula, understand it, apply it, then take the second formula, understand it, apply it, and so on. This, she believes, is not the right way, because the Ashtadhyayi has not been designed to be learnt that way. That is, you take one formula at a time. That's not the way, according to Dr. Paushpi Dikshit. The second approach is that of the Siddhanta Kaumudi. She believes that's a complete way, but it takes a long time, because I think the order has been kind of modified, and in that process, Sanskrit has been made very complicated instead of making it simpler for even children to study it. So her approach is, she calls it the Paniniya, Paniniya Paushpi Prakriya, I think she calls it. I'll just check the name of that process. The name of this third process is Paniniya Paushpi Prakriya. So I think she takes the good things from both, and she also kind of breaks this entire system into different parts, which she calls prakarans. So where she believes that Panini intended that grammar should be taught in a way that can be understood as soon as possible, with the least amount of energy and time that we can devote to it, because grammar is a means to an end. Grammar cannot be an end in itself, because when we try to learn the grammar of a language, we try to learn it so that we could either speak it or write it, or when you listen to someone speak that language, you can understand it, or when you read some great works of Sanskrit literature, you can understand it, But primarily, I think, especially when it comes to these holy languages, traditional languages, we learn them in order to understand our scriptures. The Vedas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana can be understood using our own knowledge of grammar instead of just looking at commentaries. Although I'm a great fan of commentaries, because commentaries actually, translation. I mean, if you can get a good translation in modern languages, for example in English or Hindi, I can easily understand what the author is trying to say. But there is a great advantage in knowing the original language as well, so that we can read and enjoy the poetry of these traditional works. For example, Mahabharata, when you read the original verses, that has a great effect on you because of its poetry. So her approach is different because she has rearranged some of the ways in which the Sanskrit grammar is presented. I think one thing that she often says is in the Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi way, primarily the time is spent, most of the time of the student is spent on learning this lakaras or the verbs, the different rupas or different forms of verbs, the lakaras. So her method, according to her, she believes that Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi students learn verbs in this way. That is, they take one verb, for example, bhu, that is become. They take this one verb and then they try to make all the different forms of it, all the lakaras, all the tenses and moods and so on. So they try to make all the forms of a single verb, bhu. They take one input. The input is just bhu, one input, but processing time is just too much. So you process the information using all the lakara forms that you have to make of the single verb bhu. So that's why it takes 12 years to learn the entire grammar, because if you take these verbs one by one, then the input is very little and the processing time is too much. So there is great strain on the brain. Just like in computers, you have this task manager, right? When you're kind of overloading the brain with too much of processing. What she has done is she takes just one lakara or one form of the verb, but the input is like all the verbs, all the 2000 or so verbs from the dhatu part she takes. So input is you take a lot of input, but the processing is very, very little. So that the strain on the brain is very little and you can understand the logic of it, and a lot of input, less processing. That means you free up your brain for greater understanding of the subject, and you understand the subject really quickly. So that's I think, key to her system. But even in the noun forms, she has rearranged quite a few things to make them very logical. But what she says is she follows the traditional method encouraged by Panini himself, and that she has been able to really understand the essence of what Maharishi Panini was trying to say. So with that basic introduction, I encourage you to buy this book. This entire set, it's in 6 volumes. Or you can buy them individually as well. So first buy the first set, you understand it, then buy the second set. I've gone through this, not very far. I think I just went up to maybe 48, 49 pages, and then I stopped, so I'll have to start reading this again. It contains a lot of great ideas, and if you can really have the patience, not just patience, I think if you can have this determination to go through it, you can really go through it and you can master the Sanskrit language, that is, understand the grammar in a really short period of time. With that, let me just read the portion that I've selected. So it's in Hindi, so I'll just read the thing that I've translated using Google Translate. So this introduction is by Pushpa Dikshitji. So let me read that. All the linguists of the world are unanimous on the subject that Maharishi Panini's Ashtadhyayi in a sense, containing 8 chapters. Asht is 8, Adhyayi is containing chapters. So it contains something that contains 8 chapters. So all the linguists of the world are unanimous on the subject that Maharishi Panini's Ashtadhyayi is the world's most scientific and amazing book. It not only contains Sanskrit grammar, but it contains such a wonderful science that any language of the world can be grammarized. Now the Hindi word used is vyakrit, like विश्व की कोई भी भाषा व्याकृत की जा सकती है. Grammarized in a sense, the proper translation would be, it can be, you can make a grammar out of it, because grammarize seems a bit odd. So what she's trying to say is, in fact, I'll come to this when I discuss it, so let's first read it. It not only contains Sanskrit grammar, but it also contains such a wonderful science that any language of the world can be grammarized. Therefore, scholars have considered it to be the highest example of human intellect. Ashtadhyayi, written by him, is actually the biggest revolutionary event in the world. This is such a science that by knowing it, the talent of understanding any science of the world can be developed and the intellect reaches its peak. Reasoning power develops and mental illnesses can be overcome. So I'll just talk about the benefits of studying Sanskrit grammar, especially following this method, because this method encourages rational thinking and a lot of logical thinking and the ability to kind of divide the word or kind of break it or even chop it. What should be the word? Like the Hindi word she uses is chirna. So chirna will be sawing the word, or like mince it, or like cut the word into its, all the basic components, or divide it or separate all the basic components, and then you see their interrelations. You see all the suffixes that are working, all the prefixes that are working. And then you get to the root of it. That is, you either get a basic noun, root noun, or you get a root verb, and then you try to understand the word in a better way. So the entire structure of the word shines, and it reveals itself. So that's how the scholars of the Sanskrit language analyze the Vedas. So they take every word and they know how to unpack the word or kind of break it into its components and look at its fundamental structure so that the word reveals itself because of grammar. That's why grammar is a key to understanding the Vedas. There are 6 angas or 6 parts of that science of understanding the Vedas. Vyakaran is one of the most important, or grammar is one of the most important parts of that. So let's now discuss what she is saying. So all the linguists of the world are unanimous on the subject. The Maharishi Panini's Ashtadhyayi is the world's most scientific and most amazing book. Now, no other grammar of the world can actually be as scientific as this, because the entire grammar has been captured by Panini in these formulas, 4,000 or so formulas, and it's very powerful. I have tried to learn Ashtadhyayi. I used to try to even memorize some of the sutras when I was in college, but then I was following the wrong method. Even as Pushpa Dikshitji says that I was not aware of this method when I was in college. So I think this is a very great time saver, and it also encourages you to move forward, because if the subject is made very difficult at the very beginning, one gets discouraged, and if one has to spend 12 years of one's precious life in just learning grammar, then we are going to really devote very less time on reading the great literature that's available in Sanskrit. So you spend just a year or so. I think I didn't mention how long it takes to master this. So according to her, it either takes 6 months. If you're really very diligent and you're devoted, you'll be able to learn this entire set of 6 books in 6 months. Or if you read it at a slow pace or study it at your leisure, maybe 1 year or so, or close to that. The idea is that 1 year should be a reasonable period of time for you to master the entire Sanskrit grammar. All the linguists are unanimous. Yes, I think Bloomfield and many other grammarians have referred to this grammar as, one of the greatest achievements of the human intellect. And I think even Noam Chomsky's work, if you read his syntactic structures, you'll be able to see that some impact of Panini on him, with all these input and processing and output, which you see in all modern books of grammar, right? Books on modern grammar. So you'll see that in those books, the impact of Panini is there. It not only contains Sanskrit grammar, but also contains such a wonderful science that any language of the world can be grammarized. So the science is, that is, you first break it into its roots and the root verb, then the root noun, and then you try to look at all the prefixes that are attached and what happens when you attach prefixes and suffixes. As soon as a suffix is attached, how this processing takes place. So if you can understand that, you can really create a grammar of any language based on this system. Therefore, scholars have considered it to be the highest example of human intellect. Yes, I think, was it Monier Williams or someone who said that, this is the greatest achievement of the greatest acme, or I think he used that word, the greatest achievement of the human intellect, because even Pushpa Dikshit ji says that only a man of great yogic powers, or power of concentration and focus, and someone who had, become a very great yogi could have really devised this method. Ashtadhyayi, written by him, is actually the biggest revolutionary event in the world. Why is it revolutionary? Because using just 4,000 formulas, Panini was able to show to the world that the entire language can be so beautifully and so structurally or logically explained. This is such a science that by knowing it, the talent of understanding any science of the world can be developed. So if you learn this method, you'll be able to understand any science. I think what she means is physics, chemistry, biology, even grammar of other languages, mathematics. You'll become good at it. If you see all these mathematicians, they had some Sanskrit background. I mean, not all, but many. For example, I think the one recently who got the Fields Medal and the strength, Manjul Bhargav, I think he knows Sanskrit. Jayant Narlikar, the great scientist, I think who also worked with Stephen Hawking and John Wheeler, I think. So Jayant Narlikar also has some Sanskrit background. So the thing is, what Sanskrit does is it helps us break things into different parts and look at all its the way they are interrelated. That's what we do in mathematics. And even the Sanskrit words for mathematical operations, right, reveal the operation itself. For example, for a long time I didn't really understand why 2 into 3 equaled 3 into 2. I mean, I knew that it was always true because it's just like you have two rows and 2 columns, or you can just look at them as 2 columns with 2 rows, 2 into 3, right? So 2 into 3 is like a row of 2 beads, or a row of 2 circles 3 times, like one below the other. So there are 3 rows and 2 columns of these circles, right? 2 into 3, so 2 rows 3 times. So 3 into 2 is like 3 rows 2 times. 3 rows, 2 rows and 3 columns. Let me clarify. In fact, I just got confused. So 2 into 3, I mean, we can visualize that, right? So there are 2 circles in a row, and then you have this row one below the other. So you've got 3 rows and 2 columns. So 2 into 3 maybe. Then 3 into 2 can be like, in the first row you have 3 circles, and then you have it 2 times, like one below the other. So there are now 2 rows and 3 columns, and so on. What I'm trying to say is you just interchange the position of those circles, and you know that 2 into 3 is equal to 3 into 2. But then when I learned the Sanskrit equivalents of this, Bhajya, Gunne and Gunak, I understood this. So I understood that 2 into 3 means 2 is the one, 2 is the Gunya and 3 is the Gunak, and in 3 into 2, 3 is the Gunya and 2 is the Gunak. So I was able to visualize that operation in a better way. Anyhow, I'll make a video on all these terms that we have in Sanskrit for mathematics later on. I hope I didn't confuse you. This is such a science that by knowing it, the talent of understanding any science of the world can be developed and the intellect reaches its peak. So she believes that our intelligence can reach its peak depending on our potential. So we have different areas in which we are strong, even in the intellectual field. Some might be good at physics, some may be good at biology, some may be at mathematics, some may be good at languages, expressing themselves and so on. So whatever you feel, your intellect will reach its peak in that field. Reasoning power develops, so you'll develop the Tarka Shakti, or the ability to extract one truth from another truth, because in thinking, in rational thinking or reasoning, developing your reasoning power, what matters is the step-by-step approach to thinking. So if you can do that, your reasoning power will develop, and mental illnesses can be overcome. Primarily, I made this video for this last line that we see in this. Your mental illnesses can be overcome, or I should say, you can prevent mental illnesses as well, like depression and maybe lack of concentration. That's what she means by manorog, I think. That is depression or lack of focus or any kind of negativity, actually, because your mind will be focused on these great words of our exhaustive Sanskrit literature. So anyone who devotes himself to Vedas and Mahabharata and Ramayana, the great Sanskrit texts, I don't think he or she will ever have these mental illnesses. Although there might be some exceptions. Exceptions are always there, but generally, if someone spends his or her time in trying to understand all these great works of literature, I don't think they'll develop mental illness. Similarly, for example, if you learn Tamil and you spend your time learning Tolkappiyam or Kamba Ramayana or the other ancient texts of Tamil, I don't think you'll ever get any mental illnesses or any kind of problems related to the mind. Depression can be kept at bay. So this is what I wanted to talk about in this video. So I encourage you to buy this book. Just get it from Pratibha Prakashan, and you can check the price there. It comes in hardcover and hardbound and paperback. So the paperback edition is for around 2,000, 2,500, I think, I'm not sure. I bought this for 5,000, I think. 5,000 rupees, the entire set of 6 books, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe there was a discount, I don't remember. There was a discount, I think. So maybe it was for 3,000 or so, I don't remember the price. But anyhow, the idea is that you should buy this, learn it. Again, if you can read Hindi, this is in Hindi actually. I forgot to tell in which language this is. This is in Hindi. So if you read Hindi books, you can buy this. Thanks for watching this video.